This week at Newsbud, our founder and editor Sibel Edmonds exposes a network designed to intercept and suppress whistleblowers. Our Russia expert exposes a European hotspot for the next proxy war between Russia and NATO. Our China expert breaks down the political and economic tensions between the U.S. and China. And our financial expert covers the latest escalation in the currency wars. But first, Newsbud is only funded through your donations and subscriptions, and we really do count on your support to make what we do here possible. Thank you all for your support. A monthly subscription costs practically nothing and will provide you with full access to all of the amazing content our distinguished team of experts produces on a daily basis. Let's take a quick look at what Newsbud subscribers got just in the last week of their monthly subscription. This week, Newsbud published an exclusive article by Chris Milides, our correspondent in Greece, documenting the connections between the U.S. and the Albanian-based terror group known as the MEK, who was removed from the terror list a few years ago when the U.S. decided they would be a good asset to destabilize Iran. This news did not see the light of day in the mainstream corporate press. That's why Newsbud is here. And it's a top priority for understanding the latest events in Iran, as there is a huge network of bribery and terrorism that is being protected by U.S., European, and Saudi officials hell-bent on toppling the Iranian government. Milides documents the government officials involved like John McCain and others, and the deadly terror attacks such as assassinations and bombings carried out by the U.S.-backed group, plus their involvement in the recent protests that took place in Iran. This is a must-read article, and it's exclusively available for members at newsbud.com. This week on Probable Cause, Newsbud's founder and editor Sibel Edmonds is joined by attorney, rancher, and political activist Todd McFarlane. Edmonds and McFarlane expose the current war that's being waged against the small, independent ranchers and farmers in America by the U.S. government, who has teamed up with mega corporations and special interest groups who appear to be willing to stop at nothing to shut them down and take their land. This nearly one-hour interview was made open to all and can be seen right now at newsbud.com. Edmonds and McFarlane also discussed the very important Hammond case, where Dwight Hammond and his son Stephen were imprisoned on trumped-up charges after they already served a sentence handed down by a federal judge.
This is the part, and this is the sticking point. The federal government itself appealed the sentence, thought that that sentence was too light, and thought that Judge Hogan had abused his discretion in giving them some leniency. So it went to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The Ninth Circuit overturned Judge Hogan's sentence and found that under these federal mandatory minimum sentencing requirements that he had no discretion, that judges basically have no discretion whatsoever. Doesn't matter who the people are, what the circumstances are. If you apply these terrorism enhancements, which is what they did, then they would have to serve at least 5 years. So at that point in time, they were resentenced to go back and serve the full 5 years each. And it's at that point that a lot of people started really becoming outraged about that.
And also, make sure you read, sign, and share the petition to release the Hammonds from prison. This is extremely important, and we need to stand with those who have been targeted and wronged by the system. Wouldn't you want people to do the same for you if you were in prison?
This is not an issue of partisan, one party against another, one ideology against another. This boils down to us, we the people here in the United States, our rights, the abuse of our rights, and our responsibility, our obligation for standing up for what is right for not Hammonds, for all of us. This is a case that affects all of us. And again, these types of cases, they set precedents. And people have to realize that when and if the government overreach the special interests, they get away with these and set precedents. We're going to be seeing more and more of these types of cases. And with each one of these setting precedents, we're going to make it much harder to counter. So the time to act is now. And again,
you can find the petition at newsbud.com. This week on Probable Cause, Newsbud's founder and editor Sibel Edmonds is joined by investigative journalist Whitney Webb in a must-see one-hour interview on Webb's recent three-part investigative report exposing billionaire founder of the Intercept Pierre Omidyar and his shady connections to the CIA, the NSA, Edward Snowden, Glenn Greenwald, and a betrayal of WikiLeaks. Do not miss this explosive interview that exposes how there is a network designed to intercept and neutralize legitimate whistleblowers to prevent their information from ever seeing the light of day.
because the entire formation, the birth of Intercept, was based on the so-called Snowden case, Snowden leaks, the supposed Snowden leaks, let's put it that way, and Glenn Greenwald. Supposedly, there is this whistleblower who leaks supposedly over 500,000 pages, and he doesn't leak it. He gives and he hands this information over to this supposed investigative journalist, Glenn Greenwald. So we have 500,000+ pages of expose on NSA. And with various parts, some of it supposedly exposing various companies working in these illegal spying, surveillance operations, and all this stuff. Glenn Greenwald takes this information, this 500,000+ pages, and releases a few of these via Guardian, etc. Then there goes silence on these release of documents.
Right.
A few months later, this news pops up that Pierre Omidyar, this billionaire partner with government agencies, and these are all the nasty agencies we are talking about, is giving birth to a news organization in partnership with Glenn Greenwald as the top guy, who's going to give this news organization, Intercept, its prestige and name, right? So Intercept is born. As part of this deal for Intercept and Glenn Greenwald, which is millions of dollars in salary, over $1.5 million in bonuses per year, is a deal. The deal is Intercept, this billionaire who's partner with the U.S. government agencies, going to have the exclusive right to these 500,000+ pages. To this date, it's been years. How many years has it been? 5 years? Meanwhile, NSA is kicking and screaming. At the time, White House is kicking and screaming. They're like, this guy Snowden needs to have death penalty. This is destroying our national security. This is a huge treasonous act. And some of the most sensitive information pertaining to our national security and our surveillance methods and our targets have been given, taken by Snowden and leaked to a journalist and given to Intercept. Okay. It's been 4.5, 5 years of this 500,000 supposed explosive information, 500,000 pages. We have had less than 10,000 pages released in little bits and pieces and little drips in 5 years, right? Now, considering the kicking and screaming of the U.S. government agencies, the death penalty request for Snowden, who is in Russia, he is in hiding, etc., how can the U.S. government, these same government agencies say, yet we will not touch or pursue Glenn Greenwald, who is in possession of these 500,000 pages, and the billionaire who also has now the current private ownership of this information? We are perfectly fine, the NSA, the CIA, the Department of Defense, the White House, everybody is fine for these individuals, and supposedly they are not directly working under the government agencies, for them to have these 500,000 pages, sit on it and do whatever they wish in terms of privatizing it, whether they provide it to anyone, nobody knows.
They're more than okay with it, it seems. I mean, he also continues to fund USAID, including an overseas program that's specialized in advancing U.S. national security interests abroad, which seems kind of in conflict with the Intercept's supposed mission, which is to hold the powerful accountable and whatnot. But it's also really interesting in terms of like the Snowden-Omidyar government connections that you were just talking about, is that Omidyar is also well connected to Snowden's former employer, which is a very powerful government contractor known as Booz Allen Hamilton. They've been called the world's most profitable spy organization. And so Booz Allen Hamilton, famous executives from there include James Clapper, who's the former director of national intelligence, who committed perjury but wasn't prosecuted ever. And you also have Michael McConnell, who was former director of the NSA itself. So he, Omidyar in Hawaii, where he lives, hosts a Pentagon, a contractor expo for the Pentagon, in which Booz Allen Hamilton is.
The full video is available right now for members at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch and share at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. All over the news, you see headlines of how virtually every week the stock market is breaking records and how great the U.S. economy is doing. But if you want to know and understand what's really happening and why, then you need to watch Money and Fear with Newsbud's financial expert Pi Ian. This week, Ian breaks down the big news that China is threatening to stop purchasing U.S. Treasury bonds as the currency war is escalating. Find out what's at stake politically and economically in this must-see episode where Pi Ian offers news and analysis you will never see on your evening news, unless, of course, you are a member at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch and share at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. This week on Newsbud's Geopolitical Report with Kurt Nimmo, Nimmo documents the preparations being made by the Pentagon for an invasion of North Korea. Nimmo details the rapid deployment task forces that will be set up at military installations across the country beginning next month. Plus, all the latest on the ongoing war of words and saber rattling and what a war with North Korea would actually look like. All this and more exclusively for members at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch and share at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. On this week's edition of Newsbud's Russian Newspaper Monitor with Professor Philip Kovacevic, find out how the Russian oil industry is making big strides, much to the displeasure of their Western competitors. Plus, a close look at the candidates running against Vladimir Putin in the upcoming Russian presidential elections. And you do not want to miss Kovacevic break down the next Eastern European hotspot, as another proxy war is brewing between Russia and NATO, as covert operations are currently underway fanning the flames of conflict. This is must-see news and analysis, and you will not find it anywhere but newsbud.com, so become a member today. If you want to preview our work, check us out at Newsbud Vimeo on demand. This week on Newsbud's newest show, A Different View with William Engdahl, William deconstructs a brand new 2018 National Defense Strategy that was just released by the Pentagon, signed off by Secretary of Defense General Mad Dog Mattis. Find out in this exclusive episode what everyone else missed in this report that outlines a major shift in U.S. policy. Find out what is now deemed a greater threat to U.S. national security than the war on terror. And this threat, unlike the war on terror, is not a manufactured threat.
It by no means means that the so-called war on terror, which is a cover for the CIA's using different terror organizations like Al-Qaeda or ISIS and so forth to advance a U.S. military or political agenda in the Middle East, in China and elsewhere, that agenda is by no means being closed down. Quite the opposite. It's, if anything, going to increase. I want to thank you, and the full video, of course, is available to members at newsbud.com.
The full episode is titled New 2018 Pentagon Defense Strategy, From the War on Terror to Predatory Economics, is available right now for members at newsbud.com. Non-members, Vimeo On Demand is your ticket. This week on Newsbud's China Watch, Peter Lee breaks down the latest strategic military moves by the United States that has the Chinese responding with a massive military buildup of their own inside China. Peter also covers a story that is not being reported in the corporate media about the U.S. intelligence community and how they are collaborating with a very popular university here in the U.S. Find out all this and more exclusively at newsbud.com. Non-members can watch this and all of Newsbud's exclusive videos at Newsbud Vimeo On Demand. This week, Newsbud published an exclusive article by Kurt Nimmo documenting the Trump administration's position on nuclear weapons. Find out how the current administration differs from previous administrations, despite many warnings from experts, politicians, and the intelligence community. Plus, Nimmo covers the latest deployment of U.S. tactical nukes and their current buildup, and much more exclusively for members at newsbud.com. Newsbud also offers our own aggregated news called Sibel's Picks. It's the best source for aggregated news online. Newsbud's founder and editor Sibel Edmonds handpicks each story herself, and you get about 90 links a week. If you're not already a Newsbud member, why not join today? There's no obligation, and it costs practically nothing. And your subscription helps to fund this operation, while providing you with full access to Sibel's Picks, the interviews, the roundtables, all of our exclusive shows and articles, and much more. You will not be disappointed. Thank you for supporting Newsbud, and stay tuned for next week's lineup.